Hi everyone, receive a warm welcome to this new conference about parents and parenting with the grandparents. We would like to give you this warm welcome, giving you the welcome to this new cycle to the conference. And we would like to extend you the invitation to this opportunity for reflection and learning with Assure for Life. This is our object here with us and also with the company. We'd like to give you this opportunity to learn about how it will be important to be part in the grandchildren parenting with the grandparents between both. And it's important to understand that the grandparents and the parents will be part of our parenting every day. So for that reason, we decided to give this title, Parents and Grandparents United Front the Parenting. And it's important now to understand that the role of the grandparents in the family is something that we have always have in account through our lives. And it's important to you and it's important for me to try to remember how was our relationship with our grandparents, because in this same way as a mother or as a father, we can remember how was that relationship if we have in previous lives and in previous years the opportunity to have this relation with our grandparents, how we looked to them and how we learned a lot of things about them. Try to remember how was that relation and try to remember so many things that they have to teach us every single day. I remember my grandparents with too much love and also with too much things that I have to learn about them as a way to know a little bit more of the story of our city and also about our family, how they try to grow up in this city, and that will be a lot of different things that we're going to learn about the grandparents and about the values and some important things that they will have to teach us every single day. So as a parents, it's important to understand that the grandparents will be such a great opportunity to involve in this parenting process, because they will give us support and counseling in different processes in this parenting process. It's important to understand and make them part of this process, because they will be in part of this parenting every single day. So if you as a parent remember this, you will be parents, also your son-in-law and the daughter-in-law will be the parents. So the name that I will use through this conference is parents, but I will involve both the sons, maybe if you are a grandpa, the sons and also the son-in-law, and also your daughter and your daughter-in-law. So they will be the parents. And the grandparents will be also the grandparents-in-law. So if I say grandparents, then you will know that I will involve the grandparents-in-law. So I will only use these two words, parents and grandparents. Now, if you remember, if you already remember how was your relationship with your grandparents, try to remember and try to bring that remember and the feelings and all the things that you learned about your grandparents to this process of teach to your children how they will be the parenting and how you want to they be part of your parenting between both, and also how we're going to introduce them to the parenting with you. So it's important to understand that the family will be structured and will change the dynamics, because we're going to in this different evolutionary process, because our grandparents before, maybe they was not a parent with a grand or such great process in the university, or maybe they just only have the way to work every single day. So now we have parents with careers and also with a lot of different knowledge about the life and also about different specific topics. So it's important to understand how we evolutionate every single day. So now we know that these grandparents have a lot of different knowledge, and it's important to have in account that in this parenting process. It's important to understand that the grandparents have an essential role in our families, and it's important to understand this. The key role that grandparents play in the lives of parents and grandchildren is widely recognized, contributes significantly to the well-rounded development in their grandchildren. So it's important to recognize how this will be significantly to the grandchildren's development through their lives. I remember my grandpa as a great man, and it's important to think how he will be a big influence in the way that I will give my chances in the life. So it's important as a grandchild understand the influence that the grandparents have in our life. Now, knowing this, it's important to understand that sometimes we live with our grandparents and sometimes we don't live with them. In case that you don't live with your grandparents in the same house, you have to account that they will have this essential role. It doesn't matter if you don't live with them. So it's important to involve them in the parenting in different ways, maybe visiting the grandparents every weekend, and also remember them as a part of your parenting with different tasks that you can recommend to your grandparents. And also try to remember that they can take care of them. Trying to remember how your parents, now grandparents, take care of you. And having in account what kind of things you would like as a parent that the grandparents teach to your children. Taking account this, I would like to also talk about how important is the way that we communicate with your parents and also with the grandparents if you live in the same home, because they can be also a caregivers if you are not in home as a partner, because you have to work all the day, 10 hours, 8 hours every single day. The grandparents can be the caregivers of your children. So it's important to understand how important is this role, and also can be a full-time job. For that reason, it's important to recognize that some grandparents become a primary caregivers for their grandchildren. They can feel like a full-time job. So it's important to care about the healing, about the healing of your grandparents, and also how they feel and if they have the necessary energy to take care of your grandchildren. It's important to know that, because maybe they can be so old in age and they have the love and the support in the natural way, and they want to give you or even give the grandchildren a great childhood, but it's important to understand if they have enough energy to take care of them. And it's important to have in account that kind of things if we are part in this parenting. If you are a parent that have this full job or full-time job, try to understand how the grandparents are in charge in this parenting process, and if they have the enough energy to take care of your grandchildren. Now, I would like to tell you a little bit more about how important it will be this work together as a parents and grandparents. And taking account this phrase of Sandra Alejo, educational psychologist, When grandparenting is approached with clear boundaries, it benefits not only the grandparents themselves, but also their grandchildren, the parents, and the entire family united. It's important to understand, if we have this process together and if we have all the structures with limits and love, we can construct a great process with the family united, not also as a way that we're going to through the parenting, but also we're going to have a grandchildren health and a great family united through the years. But as I told you before, if you live with your grandparents or if you live with the parents at the same time, it's important to have something in account, that is the possible conflicts that you can have. And also, if you have a distance relationship with your parents, or as a grandpa, if you have some distance with your sons that now are parents, it's important to understand that maybe we will have some conflicts in this parenting process. And it's something normal, it's something that is natural, because all the generations start to structure in a different way, because the values start to change and the way of the word starts to change in different ways. So it's important to understand that always we're going to have some conflicts between parents and grandparents, and the way that we're going to complete the parenting process. So I would like to share with you some conflicts between parents and grandparents in parenting. And one of these is pre-existing strained relationships between grandparents and parents. This is the way that I can tell you if you had a bad relation with your parents, or maybe if you have a bad relation with your grandparents, this will be influencing the process in the parenting, because sometimes it's important to resolve some conflicts that you already have with your mom or also with your father about something that happened before. And it's important, if you have problems in communication, try to resolve that in this moment before to start the parenting process. If you have conflicts and you start this big distance between the parents and the grandchildren will live that, and they will receive that influence, and maybe they develop some resentment to the grandparents. And it's important to understand how this will be a direct impact in the way that we try to complete this parenting in a healthy way. So it's important to resolve the conflicts between the parents and grandparents if you already have. The second one is difference in role expectation. And this is important to recognize, because if you have an expectation in the role of your grandparents, it's important to clarify what are you waiting for of your grandpa, or also what are you waiting of the parents now. If you are waiting the parents start to do all the things that you think that these grandchildren must be, it's important to understand that it's not always the way that you want. And sometimes you as a grandpa was before a parent, and in that process of parenting you think that you have the reason and you would like to be independent in this parenting process. So it's important to respect and be clear in the expectation that you have in the role as a parent and also as a grandpa. Respect always the decisions that the grandpa have. And also remember, one time I heard that this story, that one girl tried to always left the baby cry if they have this moment of a lot of angry. So the mom starts just only to wait to the baby just cry and left here seated crying alone, but being there for him. And the grandma start to frustrated with this reaction that her daughter-in-law in that moment, because she was waiting to start to ask to the son, hey, what is happening to you? Stop to crying, don't be a child. But it was a different way to parenting. And there was a conflict and also one expectation about what the daughter-in-law is most to do and also what the grandmother-in-law is most to do. So it's important to understand what is the expectation that you have in this parenting process with the grandparents and also with the parents in different ways. And the third conflict is disagreements over discipline and parenting approaches. This is important to understand what kind of things you understand as a discipline and also as something that is important to have in the parenting. So if you think that the grandchildren made a bad thing about something that happened in the high school and you think that is something wrong, and you don't think that it's necessary to have the kind of structure with the way that we're going to complete the parenting, it's important to understand why you will have this disagreement and why you are not agree with the things that the grandparents and the parents are doing. So try to understand what kind of things that you think are good for you as a parent, maybe for the grandparents are not good. And it's important to understand that sometimes you're going to be in this way of not be agree with everything. But it's important to understand that these disagreements will be respected every single day. So if you are not agree with the way that the grandma talk to the grandchildren, it's important to say it and try to make a list what kind of things you are not agreed, and also have a meeting and try to talk about the things that you are not agree and in the way that you are giving this parenting and be part of that. And the fourth conflict, and this is so common in every single family, is the cultural and generational difference. The grandparents are a different generation from the grandchildren, and they think that these new childs are the same old childs that they was. One example is the social media. They burned with the social media, and our grandparents, they didn't even know how we used in most of the time. I don't say everyone, because some of them now use these platforms to communicate with some important families, members in other countries, and also they use these platforms to work and share the things they do as workers. But it's important to understand that they are not with this feeling of be part of something through this social media. And the grandchildren needs to be part of this social media as a way of their self-development. So it's important to understand how they're going to communicate in these new generations. And it's important to understand as a grandpa that you have a new generation, and it's important to update with the news that this new generation have. And it's important to try to learn as a grandpa what kind of things are important to your grandchildren. And also the cultural conflicts could be if you have a son-in-law or a daughter-in-law with a different culture, and they maybe eat in a different way, or maybe they talk in a different way, or they have some beliefs that are different to you. If you are sharing different cultures, it's important to respect the way that they think, that it's important to move around the life. So it's important to understand what is important to that culture, and if it's important for me, what kind of things I can learn, and also what kind of things I can give as a way to approach that relation with my grandchildren. If they believe in God, it's important to understand that I believe in God in a different way, so I will respect that beliefs in the most peace and well-being way. This cultural and generational difference will be important to recognize and respect every single step in this parenting process. Now, it's important to understand how we're going to inform this difference and these disagreements. So it's important to understand that if we don't resolve at time these disagreements or maybe these conflicts, we will going to have maybe repercussions in the parenting process. So I will give you some repercussions that we're going to have in this moment if you don't resolve the disagreements. So some common repercussions of disagreements are: time spent together may decrease. If you already have conflicts as a parents and grandparents, maybe in the time the relation will decrease. And this is important to have in account, because if you have more conflicts, maybe the distance will be the way that you can resolve this conflict. And what we can do is be part of the parenting. So it's important to resolve all these conflicts of disagreements, different cultures, and also the expectations that we have to the parenting and grandparent parenting. So it's important to understand that together we have to resolve these conflicts. Other of the repercussions will be that the grandparents and grandchild relationship will deteriorate, because if you don't have contact with your grandparents, maybe they will have a feeling of you don't deserve of these kind of things that are important in my life. So if you start to complete this distance between the grandparents and the parents, and also with the grandchildren, you don't think that it's important to share with your grandparents time, and also maybe something important that you add. It's important to recognize how we can be part of every single step of the grandchildren life. It doesn't matter if you don't live in the same home or in the same city or even in the same country. Other of the repercussions of disagreement is conflicts may arise between parents and parents. And this is common in every step of this parenting process. If you still having these conflicts, or if you fight every single time that you see each other, this will be a way that the grandchildren start to see as a natural way that it's natural to have this conflict. It's natural to have this feeling of hate or resentment with my grandpa, and that will be something that maybe have one directly impact in the way that I see my grandpas. I don't want to be with them, or I don't want to see them anymore, because every time that we go to visit to the grandpas, you will start to fighting, and it's something that they don't, as a grandchild, they don't feel as a comfortable home or as a comfortable way. So it's important to recognize that every time that you see each other, if you don't have a good relationship, try to be polite and try to respect every time that you be together. And if you don't clear your disagreements, you will have conflicts with the established norm, and every time that you try to establish the limits that are necessary in parenting, because if you don't establish the limits in the common way, every single time that you say no to the grandparents, there will be a common fight. So if you are not agreed, so I'm going to help you in any single thing that you need with the grandchildren. So it is a common way to say, I just want to do what I want with with my grandchildren. So it's important to understand that the parents have the voice and also have the way to teach to the children, because it's important to understand they are the parents. And also before I was a parent, and when I was a parent, now that I am a grandpa, I would like to be respect with the decisions that I have with my children. So it's important to understand and recognize the power that have the parents and trust with them and be a support for the family, not a weight of a conflict or also the reason why we are fighting every single day. Try to recognize as a pillar and also as a way that I am going to be the support of the family. So I have to resolve disagreements every step of the parenting. This is pretty common. The confusion among children and adolescents may occur because if you as a parent say something and maybe in 10 minutes you as a grandpa say something different, the children and the adolescents will confuse in the way that they have to do the things. So this conflict will be one way that the children will start to think who I am, to who I have to believe and to who I have to recognize as the mentor or also as the relation with the others. So it's important to understand that we have to be agree in things that maybe the parents are doing and the parents are saying to the children and to the adolescents. So be agree if you are saying that this will be the way that we're going to go through the life. So if you have to go to the high school every single day, you have to go. But if you go to the high school 1 or 3 days and the grandparent says, yes, it's okay, go to the high school every day that you want. But if you don't want to go every single day, it doesn't matter. So it's important to understand how we're going to be each other in this parenting process, having the same thing about the parenting, and make just clear all this process. Don't confuse the grandchildren and also the adolescents in this process of parenting. And the last one, disagreement consequences, is that the resentment may surface, because if you have a bad view or maybe conflict not resolved with your parents and also with the grandparents, maybe you don't see in a good way this relation. So you're going to start this distance between both if you don't have a good relation. And it's important to understand how we're going to resolve these conflicts and how we're going to start to a new way to learn how we're going to resolve this. If you don't have a good relation as a parents and grandpas, try to the grandchildren have a good relation with the grandpas. If you don't want to be alone with the grandpas, try to do a good place, or maybe search for a good place where grandpas and grandchildren can be each other and learn together to live together. Now, knowing these repercussions of disagreements, it's important to know how we're going to strengthen the bond between parents and grandparents in the upbringing of the grandchildren. So it's important to understand that we have 3 ways to confront these disagreements, and the 3 ways are essential in this process of try to resolve the disagreements and also be part of the parenting process. One of these is the mutual respect, and it's important to understand that the respect is not just understand that the other have an important part in this parenting process. It's important to understand that you as a grandpa have a role, and me as a parent have a role. So I have to develop that role every single day in this parenting process. Don't try to change and don't try to avoid this process of the parenting, and this role will be respect every single step. So it's important to understand that the relationship in the grandparents between the grandchildren is unique. So you don't think as a way that you have to do this with your grandpa and you have to talk about these things with your grandchildren. It's not about that. All we have a different relation with our grandparents. So it's important to let that they develop their own relationship in the more natural and healthy way. It's important to understand and promote the respect and collaborations with the grandparents and with the parents, trying to create a new way to communicate, because it will be difficult to understand the different generations. So it's important to understand what they want to be part of them. So if you want to learn something about the grandpas in this new generation, is the value of the privacy. Maybe it is important to left to these children the value of the privacy in the social media, because they burn with this need of share everything, and that will be dangerous for the children, because if you share all your life and what are you doing all the time, if you are a child, that will be danger, because you don't know who can be in contact with them, and maybe will be a stranger who wants to be in contact with your child. So it's important to learn that value of the privacy of the grandparents, and that will be a way to communicate and create a new way of parenting together. And the second suggestion that we have is from a team, not only a group, is from a team. When you have this knowledge about how to be a team, you will have a way to open lines of communication, because you know how to communicate in the exactly moment. I'm not agree with that you did before with the child. I would like to talk about that. So that is about to be a team, and with the confidence that we have to talk about the things that we are not agreed. It's important, if you are a team, try to don't contradict each other in front of the children, because if you are not agree with something that did the parents, please tell them in private, because they will confuse in this way of they are not agree, I'm not doing the things right? Why my mom say yes and my dad say yes, but my grandparents are not agreed? I don't understand that. So try to be a team, and if you are not agreed with something, do it in privacy. Say something that you want to say in privacy, and understand how they will be, the conflicts will be less, and they will be understanding how they will understand that we have now in these communications. So it's important to understand that each other we can try to understand, and this disagreement will be only in privacy. It's important to understand that we have a role, and this role will be the well-being of the family. So if I complete my role as I have to do, I'm going to be part of this team. But if I don't have a clear role, I don't know what I have to do, and maybe what I have to do is not recognized, is not valued. So it's important to respect the role of every single one has in the family, and respect. And the three suggestions that we have is reach a consensus, because it's important to have these moments of conflicts, but always having a good end. And how we're going to do this? Trying to have clear rules and limits together. If you have the same rules, you're not going to contradict every single day if you are not agreed with something. So include the grandparents in this process of parenting, trying to create a good way of communication, and also one good way of being a team. And remember that the grandpas are support in this process, and also they are going to be a guide in this process of parenting. So if you are not agreed with something, try to consensus this process and talk about how we're going to go through this process together, and understanding the role that every single one has. Now, knowing these suggestions, and also knowing this process that we have to go through in the parenting process, it's important to be part in the every single step of this parenting process. And we would like to give you some important phrase, that is, the children benefit when parents and grandparents agree, so the effort should be made. Both will benefit, the children and the grandparents. Also, the parents will benefit in this process. So be clear with that state of mind, how we're going to be part in this parenting process, and we will benefit together in this process. Try to resolve the conflicts. If you have disagreements, talk about it in privacy. Respect the roles that you are doing in this family context. If you are a father, be a father. If you are a son, be a son. If you are a grandpa, be a grandpa. Be support, be a guidance. But don't try to change the roles and complete these conflicts, or be a parent or be a grandpa. It's important to have a mutual conversation and this mutual goal to be a family, and try to look for the quality of life together. So that will be all for today. Remember to leave your comments and also your suggestions or questions through the chat that we have, and we will read in and try to answer every single questions that you have. And also, I would like to extend to you the invitation to follow us through Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook as Assure for Life. And also, you can use the benefit that you already have the psychologist counseling without no additional charge if you are part of the Assure for Life company. You will have 3 free sections for grief, and if it's individual or is a family grief, and also you will have 1 psychological counseling per year and for any other reason. Remember that you can contact us through WhatsApp, and also you can email us through Count on Me at Assure for Life if you want to be part of us. Remember, we stand by your side.